guys, and welcome back. The table saw, that's what we're talking about today. Not how to use it, not safety measures of how to use it, but how to check it and give it a little quick tune-up. Things do get out of whack whenever you use these tools, and every once in a while you want to do yourself a little half-hour tune-up. So today I'm going to go through some of the steps that I like to use in order to make sure that my table saw is running in tip-top shape. So let's get right at it. Well, you guys have heard me say it time and time again. Whenever working on any kind of a power tool, especially in a situation like this where we're going to have our hands right in where the blade is, don't be a hero, guys. Unplug the thing. Make sure that it's unplugged, get the power disconnected, and then give the power switch a flick on and then off to ensure that you've pulled the right cord. Safety first. It's the first step. In order to make accurate cuts, you have to be sure that your miter slots and your fence are parallel. So that's going to be where we're going to start in checking for this tune-up. Guys have different methods of the way that they want to do this, and I mean, there is no right or wrong way, whichever you prefer. If you like, you can lock down your table saw and check the measurement from end to end, ensuring that the measurement is exactly the same at front and back and at the middle of your fence. Don't just check one slot. You've got two. Slide your fence down and check this one as well. And this one here seems to be perfect. It's right on the money. There is an easier way to check. If you're like me and you wear glasses and you don't really like looking at numbers on a ruler, you can just slide your fence over until it becomes flush with your miter slot and lock it down. Then just check all the way along. Is it protruding past your fence at some point in time? Because if there's protrusion here, either on the casting or on the fence, you've got an issue. You've got a problem here, and that's going to cause you problems somewhere along the line. So this one here seems to be right on the money. But if you did want to adjust it, there are ways to adjust the fence for left and right swing. And of course, you would have to check your own table saw as to how they recommend that you do that. But once you're satisfied that your fence is lined up with your miter slots all the way along, then you can carry on with the next step of checking the calibration of your table saw. So the next step that I like to take in checking the calibration of my saw is checking the blade for square to the table. You guys know, if you're familiar with my videos or my builds, I'm a huge fan of checking the blade for square on a regular basis. So you want to crank the blade all the way up. Once you get it cranked up, for this particular one, you guys know I love my Beal tilt box as well. So I'm just going to zero that out, and we're going to check to make sure that the blade is square. And we can see there that we're square to the table. I like to check both sides, not just one. I don't know why. That's just what I like to do. If you don't have a Beal tilt box, that's fine too. I'm sure in your shop you'll have a Trust-It square, one that you use for everything that you want to make sure that everything lines up. And this is my favorite. I love this thing in my shop. But you can see there as well that from the table to the blade, we're at 90 degrees. There's no light gap coming through. So we're at 90 degrees to our table. And that would be the second calibration step taken care of. The next thing that I'd like to check is to ensure that the blade is running square or parallel to the fence. And that's important where you don't want this end of your fence or the exit of your feed to be smaller than this end. It'll pinch your stock, it'll swing your stock in all kinds of strange places, and then you're into a dangerous situation of kickback and all kinds of crazy stuff. So you'll want to check to ensure that the blade is parallel to the fence. What we want to do is we want to take a permanent marker and just mark one tooth. The reason I want to mark the one tooth is I want to use the same tooth for measuring on this side of the fence as what I do on this side. That way I know that this tooth is worn exactly the same. There is no deviations in measurements. So we have that tooth marked, and now we want to measure from the fence to that tooth. And I'm just going to set it at 2 inches just for argument's sake, or sake of argument, whatever you want to call it. So set it at 2 inches and lock your fence down. Now that you have your fence locked down and you've verified the distance from this tooth to your fence, and as I said, in this case 2 inches, rotate your blade all the way to the back end, and using the same measuring tool that you used to check it in the first place, check that this side is at 2 inches. And in this case, again, we're right on the money here. So this is looking good. By measuring here and here, we have verified that the fence is parallel to the blade. We know that the blade is, the fence is parallel to the miter slots, so it only makes sense that the blade being parallel to the fence, it is also parallel to the miter slots. Everything squared up and everything looking great. If your blade was not parallel to your fence, then you're getting into some bigger adjustments. And that's when you'd have to get underneath the fence, loosen off the trunnions, and adjust that. And I'm telling you, that's a pain in the neck. That's something that, you know, it's not rocket science, it's not hard to do, but it's something that is time consuming with very minute adjustments and checking and double checking, because things can shift as you crank down the trunnions. But that is something that if you need to do that, check your manual to see how the adjustments are made, and don't be afraid of it. Just take your time and ensure that you're doing it correctly and that you're squaring up everything perfectly. So we have verified now that the fence is parallel to the blade, that the fence is parallel to the miter slots, that the blade is parallel to the miter slots, and that the blade is running true at 90 degrees to the table. Should this blade not be at 90 degrees, you would have to adjust your stops on the saw. On this particular unit, the stops are here and here. And it's as simple as an Allen key adjustment. Doesn't take much. A slight adjustment will allow you to fine-tune that in. So you want to check this if you're off, and that's where you'd make your adjustments. We've checked it for 90. Let's check it for 45, just to ensure that our stops are in our right spot. I've removed the zero clearance insert and cranked my blade over all the way till it stopped against the 45 degree stop. And you can see by the tilt box, it can't decide if it wants to go to 44.95 or 45. That's a pretty minute adjustment. If I wanted to at this point in time, I could adjust my stops in the table saw and bring that so that it's strictly at 45. And that's as simple as loosening off one of these two Allen keys and just giving it a slight twist. and that would correct the problem. At this point in time, just for the sake of the video, I'm going to leave this as it is. But if I really wanted to dial it in, I could go crazy with it and do it at the exact 45. The next step in our quick little tune-up here is we're going to give the inside of the saw a cleaning. There's quite a bit of excess sawdust here that's gathered up around the edge, even with the dust collection. And as well, you can see here with the worm gear, we've got quite a buildup of sawdust on there. So we'd like that to move as smoothly as possible. We're going to clean it up with a soft brass brush, vacuum out the saw, get all the excess sawdust out of there, and then we're going to lubricate that worm gear. For this particular application, you don't want to use a wet lubricant. You want something that's dry. And I'm using a fast drying graphite lubricant. And you just give it a little spray all the way along and let that dry. And once that's dried, you can rotate that shaft 90 degrees and spray the other side of it. There's all kinds of lubricants that you could use. This particular one I happen to like, works really well, so I stick with that. But you don't want to use a wet lubricant like grease because it will attract and hold the sawdust. So use it on all interior moving parts of your saw. Don't know how well you can see this, but we've also got a good coating of the graphite lubricant along this worm gear and the whole mechanism for raising the blade. So as I said previously, you want to ensure that all moving and meshing parts have been lubricated. So we've got everything squared up, we've got everything lubricated, we've double checked, triple checked. Now we want to take care of the top of the table saw. So you can use a paste wax, whatever you like. I showcased this stuff last week in the rust removal video, this top coat stuff by Bostik. And you know, I like it, so I'm going to use it for this as well. So don't forget to give your miter sled a coat of this stuff as well. I mean, why not? You can give it a coat of that, wipe that off once it hazes over, and give your saw a generous coat of this, lubricating all the parts, including lubricating the track that your fence is going to run in. You need that lubricated as well to make that smoothly operational. All the surfaces of the saw, like I said, whether you use a spray or a wax or a spray top coat like this, don't forget to do in the miter slots too, guys. Either way, it's going to make your saw perform a lot better. The lubrication is going to help everything move and slide nicely along the table saw. Buffing this out would be the final step for this quick little tune-up of your table saw. And there you have it. Doesn't take long for a quick little tune-up. Obviously, I've really sped this up for the sake of the video. Some of the things I already knew were right on, so it was easy to do this one. If this were me really tuning up this saw, it would be hours. Take your time. You're not in a hurry, and getting it properly calibrated means you've also fine-tuned your cuts, which in turn improves your woodworking. So with that in mind, give it a try yourself. Do a quick table saw tune-up, and I'll see you again next week for another woodworking video. Thanks for watching, guys.